Hey everybody, it's Gomedex, and welcome back to another Omniscience Draft, the point where the cards are free and the mana doesn't matter. So our opening pack here has basically no card draw, which is the strongest thing in the format. That's what you really want. We have Infernal Scarring, which is card draw when the creature dies, which you can't always get to happen immediately, so it's not the greatest. It does combo with Village Rites, which sees tons of play in this format, so if we throw Infernal Scarring something and then sacrifice it to Village Rites, we could get the card draw off of this immediately. But in general, this is about the weakest card draw in the entire set. You would take anything like a Defiant Strike or any of that over this. Unfortunately, this pack really has no card draw. There's Warden of the Woods, which could be a decent large creature. It'll be a big creature to just have out in the games, and if our opponent tries to use any removal on it, we'll draw 2 cards. So basically, our opponent is never going to do that. So just a 5/7 Vigilance seems okay. There's Garruk's Harbinger, which we could get 20 gems by picking it up because it's a rare. I already have a playset of it. You can always check at any point while you're drafting. If you hold the Alt key, it'll show you how many of all the cards you own. And I own pretty much everything in the set, so we get 20 gems by taking the Harbinger, and potentially, if we're really lucky, this could hit our opponent, and then we can draw creature cards with its ability, which could be good, but this is definitely a very weak pack for the format. No Read the Tides, no Bad Deal, none of the A+ commons or uncommons, and not even a rare that's particularly great. So, Warden of the Woods, Garruk's Harbinger. The only alternate thing I could see someone making a case for is maybe Alpine Houndmaster. Alpine Houndmaster, in this format, you're going to end up with some garbage cards by the end of the packs, and one of those cards you do tend to see quite late in the packs is Igneous Cur or Alpine Watchdog even. So if we end up seeing a lot of those later in the pack, Alpine Houndmaster can at the very least get 2 of those out of our decks to make our future draws more reliably powerful, because then we're removing like a 1/2 and a 2/2 from our deck by playing this, but we're also putting another 2/2 in our deck by putting this in there, so I don't think that that's worth it in general. I think I'm just going to go with Warden of the Woods probably over those 2. There's also the Trader's thing. You can steal one of your opponent's creatures, untap it, and gain haste till end of turn. So that's kind of good when everything's really powerful creatures. So I forgot to mention that. That is also worth consideration, pretty much on par with the rest of them. So out of this pack, I like Kinetic Augur. It lets us discard our bad cards to try to draw into 2 new cards, and it is also a very big creature late in the game. All of these decks are going to have tons of instants and sorceries because you're going to have tons of random little draw spells like Revitalize and stuff you're casting throughout the game. So I'm definitely going to take Kinetic Augur because it fills both roles of a powerful draw spell and a powerful creature to beat our opponent with. No great card draw really running around in these packs still. This pack's really bad for this format. A lot of small creatures. I think I'm just going to take the Sky Scanner here, because we immediately draw a card when we play this, but the next best cards are probably Teferi's Protege, allowing us to draw a card and discard a card every turn with this, and Pitchburn Devil's just the biggest creature, like a 3/3. When it dies, it does 3 to something. I think my pick order here would be like Sky Scanner, then Protege, then maybe Portcullis Vine or Pitchburn Devils. But not a powerful pack for this format. Alright, this is a pretty good pack. We have Rousing Reed to draw 2 cards and then discard a card and give one of our big creatures flying. We have Sky Scanner, again, nice little chump blocker, draws a card immediately. Riddle Form's actually okay. You are scrying 1 during your turn and then scry 1 during your opponent's turn with the 5 mana you get from the Omniscience emblem, so that's okay. And Witch's Cauldron as well. This now allows us to sacrifice a creature every turn to gain a life and draw a card. So a lot of okay stuff here. Rousing Reed's really good, followed by probably the Sky Scanner in the Riddle form, and then maybe the Cauldron or the Chrome Replicator as the biggest creature here. And if you have multiple of the same creature on the board, this comes into play as 2 4/4s for the 1 card. So pretty big creature there, especially if you can get the trigger going. It's definitely just going to be the Rousing Reed, though. It's just really good in this format to give a big creature flying and draw 2 cards, and I'll definitely pick up another one for the same reason. But after that, the pick order probably just Capture Sphere, just to have the nice instant speed removal. Then maybe a Rise Again to bring back one of your fat things, your really large creatures. Other than that, maybe like a Burlfist Oak, because this can attack for a lot. You draw, in general, quite a few cards every turn, so that is a pretty big creature most of the time. Ooh, and we get the bad deal very late. Thank you very much, bots, who don't know how Omniscience Draft works. Whatever the bots are drafting, it's not an Omniscience deck. That's for sure. I don't know what they have the bots set to draft in this format, to be honest. But you could very much tell from those last two picks, it's not an Omniscience Draft pick over. So now I'm going to take Village Rites over Gloomsower or Track Down. I like both of these cards a lot. Gloomsower is really big, and Track Down, you get to scry, draw a creature off the top, and hopefully off of the scry you're setting up another draw spell for next turn, but Village Rites just gives you more cards immediately. And since it's Omniscience Draft, then we end up with like 42 cards. We end up only being able to cut 2 of the cards we drafted, so we're likely to have a bunch of shitty creatures like Vidalian Arcanist to sacrifice to Village Rites to just get off the ground running, trying to chain together a bunch of draw spells like Augur, Read the Tides, Bad Deal, Village Rites, all that good stuff. But yeah, there are 3 other very viable picks here. Track Down, Gloomsower, and Crypt Lurker. You can sack a creature or discard a card to draw a card with this, and you can even just make it sacrifice itself if you have nothing else in your hand and you just want to draw the next card trying to hit or Read the Tides. Crypt Lurker is pretty good too. And now we do have that Infernal Scarring we had in our opening pack, and we have the Village Rites to combo with it, but I still really don't like that card. I think I'm just going to take one of the big creatures here, like the Gorehorn or the Blood Glutton. I'm going to roll with the Gorehorn. And here we'll take Revitalize for the gain 3 life and draw a card. Revitalize is a lot better than the, I don't remember what the card's called, but the +1/+0 and draw a card that was also in that pack, because Revitalize you can cast even if there's no creatures on the board, whereas the other card, there has to be a creature on the board, and most of the time you're not using that for any extra damage or any value, whereas Revitalize just gaining the 3 life, that's fine value. None of these cards are super exciting, so we could take a Mind Rot here. Mind Rot is really only good if you draw it in your opening hand, because if you draw it in your opening hand, you can Mind Rot your opponent, get rid of 2/3 of their hand, which is good. But if you draw it in the late game, the only cards that your opponent will be holding on to will be pretty much just counterspells. And obviously, if they have a counterspell, you do get to get rid of the 1 counterspell with the Mind Rot. But if they have more than 1 card in hand, you're only making them discard 1 still. So yeah, Mind Rot, not a huge fan because it's only good turn 1, but this pack in general is pretty weak. There's like a Wishcoin Crab as the biggest creature, a Portcullis Vine that you can sacrifice it to draw a card the turn after you play it, but is not the greatest draw spell. And Liliana's Steward, which is very similar to the Mind Rot. It's only just going to make him discard a counterspell at best, and Steward is going to do even less than that, because if you hold this up trying to get them to discard 1 specific card, they're just going to draw a card during their draw step and have 2 cards in hand and discard whichever one they want by then. So now we have Gnarled Sage and Chrome Replicator. I do like the reach on the Gnarled Sage, but the potential of getting 2 4/4s out of the Chrome Replicator is really cool to me, so I'm going to roll with that over the Sage. The +0/+2 and Vigilance doesn't usually matter in this format. In this format, the vast majority of attacks are just immediately lethal, because either your opponent doesn't have any creatures out, or you've just cast a spell that makes it so all their creatures can't block. So I'm just going to take Chrome Replicator. Sure Strike or Tome Anima? I guess we're taking Tome Anima because we can actually sacrifice that to Village Rites and stuff. And now Furor of the Bitten is something we really don't want to play, but you can only cut so many cards in this format. We're going to hold on to that for now. What do we have opened in our second pack? So it looks like, again, just not a powerful card to open. Or just not a powerful pack to open in general. What does this rare do? Discard your hand till end of turn whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Seems pretty bad. This seems like it's pretty much never going to do anything. Just on average. Alright, so what do we have? We have Fierce Empath, which is pretty nice. Fierce Empath is just another copy of whatever our big scary creatures are. So Fierce Empath is like another Warden of the Woods that we can draw early. and it gives us a 1/1 on the board alongside it for sacrificing to village rights and stuff, so Fierce Empath is good. There's also Sanguine Indulgence, which is good. We can pick up 2 creature cards from our grave, bring them back to our hand. If we have something like Kinetic Augur in the grave, that could start another chain of drawing cards, so that could be good. There's Spined Megalodon, which is the best just large creature out of this pack. And then there's Crypt Lurker or Track Down for the draw card cards. And to a certain extent, Library Larcenist. Crypt Lurker, discard something or sacrifice this to draw a card. Track Down, we get to scry and then draw a card, but we're only drawing if the top of our card is a creature. That being said, the scry does let you set up to have a Read the Tides on top for your next turn, or if you have Track Down and something else, being able to scry before you cast the other draw spell is nice. So I like it for that reason. Pretty split decision here. I think all of these cards would be good, except the Library Larcenist. I'm just not a huge fan of that, even though it does draw a card. It only does it once, and it only does it the turn after you play it, because the odds of your opponent not having a creature that's bigger than a 1/2 out are basically 0. So I'm actually going to go with the Sanguine Indulgence here, since we have Kinetic Augur and Village Rights, so we have like a creature that draws cards when we play it and a way to sacrifice it. Obviously, it's unlikely we'll get both of those at once, but it is possible that we'll draft cards like Thrill of Possibility that let us discard a card and then draw a card, or we'll just draw more Village Rights. All of that kind of stuff that could combo really well with those two. Actually, that being said, that's about the only way this would be drawing cards, whereas Track Down is almost always going to do it. I'm actually going to take the Track Down here, I think. Last second, complete swap in my pick order. Here, I think I will just take a Sky Scanner. There is Capture Sphere and Faith's Fetters. These are both good removal spells. Faith's Fetters, I would definitely take over the Capture Sphere. The Capture Sphere, you can play at instant speed, but it only deals with creatures. Faith's Fetters deals with any permanent. Shuts off all the activated abilities from it, so it doesn't stop something like Garruk's Uprising that has triggered abilities that allow your opponent to draw a card, but it stops Planeswalkers, so if your opponent's managed to draft like an Ugin, you can use Faith Fetters, which is cool, but I think we still just take the Trump blocker that draws a card first, and maybe pick up that kind of stuff later. Bad deal, easy. There's also a Village Rights here we'd like to wheel. That's pretty much it. Then we start getting to Crypt Lurker, and after that we're just taking maybe Blood Glutton or the Rambunctious Mutt. What do we have this time? It doesn't look like there's any draw power, so I'm probably taking Spined Megalodon, but we'll look through and just make sure. Keen Glidemaster can give your stuff flying, but it's not often necessary, because most of the time you're going to win by just having a ton more creatures, or there's cards that shut off all your opponent's creatures from blocking. I think we want to take the big creatures before we take the cards that make the big creatures better, for sure, if not for any other reason. For that reason, we'd take Spine Megalodon first. Carrion Grub could be big if you have enough big creatures in your deck, but we probably just want the big creatures first there as well. Yeah, so I think here there's Spine Megalodon, Infernal Scarring, and Duress. Duress, very similar to Mind Rot. It's only good in your opening hand, otherwise it can potentially just get rid of a counterspell in your opponent's hand in the late game, but that's about it. So I think Megalodon's just better. So I like Megalodon, but these two are fine later picks. And it doesn't look like there's any draw here. There's no counterspells either. Because each player gets 5 mana per turn, neither of these counterspells can do anything in this format, so we actually don't have many counters. We haven't seen really any in these packs, so we don't have any cancels or any rewinds in our deck, which is pretty scary. I do like definitely having at least a few counters in your deck to potentially stop our opponents, like turn 1 bad deal, because if that ever resolves, we just lose. Alright, well, that's real awkward. The Wingmare can potentially make it so your opponent can only play 5 non-creature spells in their turn, but it also shuts your stuff down, so that just seems kind of cute and not super worth it. I guess I'll just take Rambunctious Mutt. it can destroy problematic artifacts or enchantments like Rook's Uprising or Chromatic Orrery, the one that draws a card for each color of permanence you control. That is pretty insane. Suppose we're just taking a Spined Megalodon here. Yep. The only draw spell we have is Infernal Scarring, which only works when the creature we've put it on dies. So it doesn't do anything immediately unless we sacrifice the creature to Village Rites or something. So we'll just take the big creature, Spined Megalodon, and be happy about that one. And another Spined Megalodon or a Sanguine Indulgence. With only the one Village Rites, well, I have 2 Rousing Reeds to discard a card as well. So I have Kinetic Augur, 2 Rousing Reed, and 1 Village Rite. So I have 4 different ways to get my own creatures into my graveyard. But the only one that sacrifices them is my 1 Village Rites. So I don't often expect to have a bunch of Sky Scanners in my graveyard, because I'm never going to discard a Sky Scanner to a Rousing Reed or a Kinetic Augur, because it already is going to draw a card when it comes into play. But if I can sacrifice a Sky Scanner or Kinetic Augur to Village Rites, then that makes Sanguine Indulgence quite good. And I already do have the 2 Megalodons. I feel like we can get the Indulgences later. I've seen a lot in these packs, so I'm hoping that some of them will. But the Indulgences would be pretty cute. I'm actually going to take Village Rites over Revitalize here, just because it draws more cards, even if we have to sacrifice something to do it. We actually do want to get stuff that sacrifices stuff, because I'm starting to get pretty excited about the idea of Sanguine Indulgencing with Sky Scanners and Kinetic Augurs in our grave. And for that reason, I am just going to take the Sanguine Indulgence here, and now I'm really looking at Village Rites and Crypt Lurkers. Oh yeah. I'm just going to scope all these Sanguine Indulgences and now try to just make a gigantic stack of Village Rites. Rambunctious Mutt or Forgotten Sentinel. So the reason to take the Forgotten Sentinel here would be because it has power 4 or greater if we see a Garruk's Uprising. But we're already in pack 2. We have 1 more pack to potentially get a Garruk's Uprising. I don't feel like that's insanely likely. That one gets opened up in the next 3 packs, because I feel like the bots would take it pretty early. I'm going to take the Rambunctious Mutt over the Sentinel, because I don't think we're going to end up with a Garruk's Uprising. The bots aren't drafting by Omniscience Draft pick orders, but Garruk's Uprising is just a good card in regular draft anyway. With double Village Rites, maybe I want Scarring more than Sentinel. I don't feel like I do. Let's see how many creatures I have right now. I have 12 creatures. Actually, yeah, I've got enough creatures. I should pretty consistently be able to just throw that on something. Run Afoul has literally done nothing for me anytime I've done it, unfortunately. Alright, well, I suppose we're taking Rousing Reed here for draw 2 and then discard 1. The best cards we'd like to wheel would be maybe Fungal Rebirth, Secure the Scene, or Mind Rot. I think Secure the Scene's my favorite out of those, but Fungal Rebirth is good. Yep, this is a pretty easy Rousing Reed. We get past and opt. And that's basically it. I think Opt is the best card here. Obsessive Stitcher can draw cards throughout the game, but I'm a much bigger fan of cards that immediately draw cards than cards that draw cards over time, just because of how fast the games go. A lot of the games are just turn 1 kills. I'm really looking for counterspells here. I can't believe that I actually don't have a single one yet. I think the only thing, unless there were counterspells in the packs with the powerful draw spells, I don't feel like I've seen a single counterspell. But you can't take a counterspell over Read the Tides Are Bad deal if there were counterspells in those packs. I'm just hoping that there wasn't a counterspell in the pack with Warden of the Woods or something, but I feel like I haven't seen any. I'm getting really worried, because the way that you win in one turn, the way that you one turn kill in this format is to chain together draw spells like Reign of Revelation, Read the Tides, Bad Deal, just to draw a bunch of creatures, and then you just stack out a bunch of creatures on the field, holding on to a single counterspell in your hand, and then if your opponent ever tries to cast a Read the Tides Are Bad deal of their own, you just counter that, and they're just stuck with the one creature they have in hand. Especially if you've bad dealed to where they're just stuck with top decking something, then you just counter whatever they top deck. That is a really good way to win, but I haven't seen any counter spells, so I'm really looking for them. That being said, this pick's incredibly easy. Reign of Revelation, drawing 3 cards is just nuts. No counter spells yet again. I guess we're taking Thrill of Possibility to discard 1 card and draw 2. It's better than Protege just because Protege draws the cards slowly. And I think it's better than Finishing Blow 2 just because this format is not very interactive. Removal is not that important. Sky Scanner to just draw 1 card, or Kitesail Freebooter can mess with her opponent's hand. So if they have a bad deal in their hand, if we play Kitesail Freebooter on turn 1, it's very similar to Duress in that way. It's good turn 1, but pretty much no other time. So I kind of like Track Down or Sky Scanner better. I'm going to take the Sky Scanner. There's another Read the Tides, but there's only 2 more packs to get a single counterspell in this deck, and I really want one. No counterspells in this pack either. This is going to be a scary draft to end off these Omniscience drafts. We've got tons of draw power, but 0 counters, so this will be a very interesting one. This will be a weird one. I expect a lot of games where myself and my opponent are just going to have massive, stupid fields out. Probably Teferi's Protege for being able to draw a card and discard a card every turn for as long as the game goes on. It's not super likely to be long, but if it is. Alright, Read the Tides. We do not have a single counterspell. We just did not see any in all 3 packs somehow. If there were any counterspells in this pack, or in the packs, looking back on it, they were probably just in like pack 1 when we were taking Read the Tides and things. So that's weird, and that is rough. So this deck is definitely missing a key component of what makes 1-turn kill decks in this format so good, which basically every deck is trying to be a 1-turn kill deck in this format. So that'll be rough. This is scary. I'm going to take the Epitaph Golem here, because since we don't have any counterspells, we can't stop our opponent from comboing off against us. So if our opponent does draw into their draw spells to where they are going to combo off like we did, and then we'll just end up in a board stall where both of us have tons of creatures out, we can pivot into trying to just mill them out by using this card to keep fueling our deck, keep putting our cards back into our library, and hoping that they just don't. They don't have an Epitaph Golem of their own or anything like that. So I guess, I'm taking Epitaph Golem for those games in which I combo off, and then my opponent immediately just gets to combo off on their own again, or as well as us. Defiant Strike or Forgotten Sentinel. I'll take the little draw spell. Could exile their graveyard as well to win in that Epitaph Golem mirror match, but no, I think that's rare to come into play. It does shut off the Shipwreck Dowser infinite combos that are possible in this format as well. Shipwreck Dowser does return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. So with Read the Tides, if you play Shipwreck Dowser and return Read the Tides from your grave to your hand, you can then cast Read the Tides to return Shipwreck Dowser and any other creature on the field to their hands. So you can infinitely recast the returning a creature part of Read the Tides with Shipwreck Dowser to return any other creatures on the field to hand. So if you have Shipwreck Dowser with a Read the Tides in your graveyard and a Sky Scanner on the field, you can draw your whole deck. If you have it with like a Bone Pit Brute, you can give plus infinite plus 0 to one of your creatures. Just plenty of infinite combos with Shipwreck Dowser and Read the Tides. And Tormod's Crypt would counter that, because we would just exile their graveyard in response to them trying to pick up Read the Tides from their grave. So that would be the argument for Tormod's Crypt. And Wishcoin Crab isn't going to do a lot most of the time, but it's a creature to sacrifice to village rights. It's 2/5, so it blocks like 4/2s and stuff that people would run in this format. I think I'm still just going to take the Wishcoin Crab. Oh wow, we got this track down really late. That feels great, because that is definitely a card we'll play. I don't want to play Liliana's Steward, but I want to see what I have to cut here. It's possible that I cut something else before that. I don't think so. I think Liliana Stewart is the first cut, then definitely Fury of the Bitten and Run Afoul. Does everything else do something proactive for our side? Everything except like Mind Rot and Duress, basically. Those are the only cards that I'm entirely just like trying to screw over our opponent. I can't complete my words sometimes. It's a strange issue. Yeah, I think this is the deck. These are definitely the weakest cards we have. Well, this is another Omniscience Draft I am not super confident in. I don't think I've been confident in one of these drafts since maybe the first one, but even then, it's always scary going into the games. You never know what's going to happen, and running a deck with 0 counterspells seems incredibly risky, but we didn't have much of a choice. So I'm on the play, and our deck has like 2 bad deals and 3 read the tides. I feel like I mulligan because of how many of those we have. Yeah, we have 2 bad deal and 3 read the tides and a kinetic augur. I think I actually mulligan this hand then. I don't love this, but track down could hit something important. I don't think we mulligan to 1. I think I'll keep this, get rid of the Wishcoin Crab, and try to track down into something. Of course, track down only draws the top card immediately if the top card is a creature, so we can't track down and immediately draw into a bad deal off the top, which is a little sad, but we can track down and hit a Sky Scanner and then draw the next card, which could be really good because we're scrying, so we'll know what's coming up after the creature as well if it's something good. So we'll try that out. Alright, definitely hoping for no counter magic from our opponent. They do have something at instant speed. Well, I think I'll just draw a Warden of the Woods, and I don't actually want a Village Rites away a Warden or a Spine Megalodon, I think. I actually want to just draw a Warden, and we'll just try to play a pretty basic game of Magic here. But I expect our opponent will have other plans. On our side of the table, we're just going to play some fatties. They actually counter that. See if they counter Spine Megalodon as well with 1 card in hand. Yep, alright, the top deck war has begun. Who could draw better? Opponent draws Wishcoin Crab, I draw Sky Scanner. I like that. That makes me feel pretty good about the start of the top deck war. Alright. This is the issue with the Mind Rot, as I was saying before. No blocks. What do they have? I feel like our opponent somehow grabbed the counters out of our packs, but we'll see. Rousing Reed's definitely a good draw. I did Mind Rot there first, just in case our opponent had a 3rd counterspell in their hand. That is why I played that way. Oh my god, there's another Mind Rot. Oh my god, look at this coming up. Holy lord. Yeah, that's gonna be insane. I guess I'll show my opponent the bad deal. So they'll be like, uh-oh. Look at that. That's scary. That's terrifying. Alright, Wishcoin Crab comes in. Mind Rot pulls the counterspell out of their hand, even if they top decked 1. They can't use it to counter bad deal thanks to the Mind Rot in hand. Oh my god, Mind Rot actually did work. That's pretty cool. Mind Rot actually won us the game here, because if we didn't have that, they just counter the bad deal. But I suppose even if they counter the bad deal, I still draw into these after it. Yeah, this is just really dumb. Really, really dumb. Kinetic Augur is going to kill them in a couple swings. That is definitely the plan. 21 cards in our library. We've got Sanguine Indulgence to pick up our anti-mill card. Our Epitaph Golem from our grave. There it is. I'm going to pick that up now. Pick up the Epitaph Golem and just a big creature. I should have just picked up the Hexproofer, I think, but it really doesn't matter. I can easily draw my whole library with the hand I currently have. So we're actually just going to draw into everything. With no counterspells, I do remain a little scared. I think I just discard those. Scry 1, draw 1. Oh, it's a Sky Scanner, so we draw another one. Probably discard Rambunctious Mutt to draw 2. Double Rousing Reed after that. There's a Megalodon, another Scarring. Flying to the Augur. Got a Duress. I'll discard that. Play a Gorehorn. Rousing Reed on the Hexproofer. We have lethal flying damage going on. There's another bad deal. Sure, I'll bad deal again. Down to 4 cards. Here's Megalodon. Here's a Mutt. And that will end the draw. Let's Epitaph Golem to get some stuff back in our deck. Don't need draw spells anymore. We'll just get our big creatures back. Obviously don't need draw spells with the 5-card deck. Just throw some creatures in there. The Chrome Replicator as well, I suppose. And pass the turn. Our opponent will now have to chain off their own stuff to survive. Unfortunately for us, they're succeeding so far. See, this is what absolutely sucks about having 0 counterspells in our deck. If we had 1 counterspell in the deck, with the way our hand went, we could absolutely draw it. We could have drawn our whole deck if I played a little differently. But I didn't want to draw my whole deck, obviously, with Epitaph Golem. So we would know that we'd have a counterspell to stop our opponent from doing this, and then we just attack in for lethal on our next turn. But since I don't have counterspells, I just have to let my opponent draw their entire library as well. And then who knows what happens there. And then we just stare at each other. And unless they don't have an Epitaph Golem of their own, then I just mill them out by using Epitaph Golem's ability. But our opponent could also just have a removal spell for Epitaph Golem. And if it's one that exiles it, I can't do anything about that. If they have something to destroy Epitaph Golem, I can cast another Sanguine Indulgence. I can use the ability to throw just Sanguine Indulgences on the bottom of my library. But yeah, this is going to be really weird to see how this plays out with no counters in my deck, and our opponent just drawing their whole library as well here. If our opponent doesn't have any removal, we can still just win with our flyers. But if they do have removal, they just kill my flyers, and then I guess I'm trying to win off of the mill with the Epitaph Golem. If they can draw their whole deck, they can use whatever answers they have in their entire deck. So they need to have answers to my flying creatures, an answer to my Epitaph Golem, and some way to win on their side as well. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. They could try to win by just repeatedly targeting my Warden of the Woods with Defiant Strikes and stuff and making it draw my whole library. It is a May ability though, so I guess they can't do that. I can just say, no, I don't want to draw any more cards right now. I'm already pretty close to milling myself out. Gormand. And then there's an Infernal Scarring, so they can sacrifice the Fierce Empath, and then they get to draw a card thanks to Infernal Scarring. They make me sacrifice a creature with Gormand's ability. On this board, I think I'll just sacrifice a Rambunctious Mutt. I want to keep all of my creatures with flying. Our opponent has 1. They have Gormand coming out. That's a 5/5 flyer. Alright, Chrome Replicator, sure. It's a creature on the ground, so that's fine. Traitorous Greed on Kinetic Augur. Am I actually just going to die to my own Kinetic Augur? I think I am. 19 trampling damage, and I'm at 11. So I have to block with Megalodon, and... wow, I basically just die to my Augur because I have to kill it with my Megalodon, and I take a bunch of damage. I have to kill my own Kinetic Augur, which saves my opponent. I don't have any other way to block this and survive because of the trample. That sucks. All right, so I stop 8 damage there. I take 11. I stop 9 damage there. I take 10. If they have a single Defiant Strike or something in their hand, they kill me anyway. If I block with both Sky Scanners, then they need literally Defiant Strike to kill me, or something that puts 2 instants or sorceries in their grave. Yeah, I suppose Defiant Strike would have killed me if I blocked with 1 or 2 Sky Scanners. Alright, there's Gorman sacrificing Fierce Empath. Resolve that. I sacrifice a creature. I'll sacrifice my 3/4. I no longer have flyers. But our opponent is at only 15. Defiant Strike the Epitaph Golem, sure. And then there's Spellgorger, weird. Opponent has 10 cards in their library: Sanguine Indulgence, 4 Spined Megalodon, and a little wall. Thrill of Possibility to draw 2 more. Down to 8 cards. Thrill of Possibility. Draw 2 more. Being at 2 life is really rough here. If I don't have as many blockers as they have creatures, I'll just die. Shipwreck Dowser is just game. That is the infinite combo with Read the Tides Engraved. They can infinitely replay their Chrome Replicator for infinite creatures. They could just infinitely recast Shipwreck Dowser without doing anything else for an infinitely large Spellgorger weird. They just pick Bad Deal. Alright, so I guess people don't know about the Shipwreck Dowser infinite combo. So when Shipwreck Dowser comes into play, returns an instant or sorcery from grave to hand, and the other side of Read the Tides is return 2 creatures to their owner's hands. So you're returning Shipwreck Dowser and any other creature on the field, and then you can pick it back up and do it again. Well, that's embarrassing. I forgot I was at exactly 2, and Bad Deal does exactly 2. So they probably knew about the Shipwreck Dowser infinite combo and just wanted to kill me faster with the 2 damage. Okay, alright. That was rough. That was a rough one. I think counterspells are incredibly important in this format. I'm probably just going to lose all the games because of the lack of counterspells. As you can see from that game, opponent did just top deck into the entire deck cast for Trader's Greed plus the Spell Weaver Shipwreck Dowser. I don't know why I said Spell Weaver. For the Shipwreck Dowser into a lethal. Well, see what we can get going in another game here. Alright, we're off to a great start. If our opponent doesn't have counterspells, this Mind Rot will go crazy. If our opponent does have counterspells, they'll probably have to cancel the Mind Rot. Alright, and if they only have the 1 counterspell, Read the Tides should be pretty much lethal. Alright, draw 3. We did it. We've got a Duress in hand, but actually, the Read the Tides is not lethal. We didn't draw into more draw spells. So, I think we Duress our opponent, see what is in there. Sanctum of Shattered Heights and Volcanic Salvo. They scoop them up. It's interesting. I was going to make them just discard the Volcanic Salvo and then play our creatures past the turn. If they drew into Read the Tides, as always, you could just win there. Draw into Read the Tides, then draw into Bad Deal, then draw into 4 creatures and a counterspell, you know. So I'll take the win, but we weren't going to have that crazy of a start overall. Definite keep. This one is a crazy start. Duress, Bad Deal, and Read the Tides. Maybe that's how we win. We're all in on our opponents just conceding, because if they don't concede, we don't actually have counterspells in our deck. So the crazy large turns that look like automatic wins aren't actually automatic wins, as we saw in our first round, because we just don't have the counter magic to stop our opponent from doing the same thing. So if our opponents don't concede on us, they've got a firm chance. But we're going to hope that they do, because we're going to go crazy and cast our whole deck the vast majority of the time. And and yeah, I mean, sometimes that'll just get the concession out of your opponent. We weren't even going to play our whole deck. Yet again, we weren't going to play our whole deck. We were going to play a lethal amount of creatures on board, so we were going to force them to top deck well. But as always, Read the Tides and Bad Deal. A single top deck can turn into a top deck of 10 to 30 cards. So it's not just what single card could I have that would save me from this. It's potentially what 10 or 20 cards could I have that could save me from this, you know? Always wait till you draw the card to concede in this format, I feel. Our opponent does mulligan. I'm keeping this for the opt to try to draw into something, but this could be worth a mulligan. We're not really going off here. Epitaph, or Reign of Revelation, changes that a little bit. Yeah, now we're pretty much going off. Skyscanner with Village Rites. That's a draw 3 right there. Another Village Rites for the next creature I want to sacrifice. I don't want to sacrifice my Epitaph Golem, though, because I like not milling out if my opponent and myself both just go infinite. Alright, this is definitely an infinite draw here. Just drawing the whole deck out, hoping for a concession, and they do the concession. It's another win for the combo deck with no counters, because people just don't want to sit there against the Solitaire. That is very much what you sign up for when you head into an Omniscience Draft, though, so I'll take it. I'll take the win. I could go over the whole spiel I just did of they didn't have to concede. They could always get just as ridiculous of a draw as myself. But honestly, in their position, if I wasn't recording, there's a chance I would concede in their seat, because I'm so used to, like, it's so unlikely for one of these decks to not have at least one counterspell in the deck. And when I'm drawing my entire library, you know, they know that if I have any counterspells in my deck, I'm going to be holding counterspells up. So yeah, the odds are just so insanely low that they would win any of those games when they don't know what's in my deck, that I get the concessions. Like, I definitely get it. But little did they know. 0 counterspells. So the odds are actually not the worst in the universe. And for the same reason, I'm not going to Reign of Revelation right now, because I have no counterspells anyway. I guess I could Reign of Revelation right now before they draw any cards, so that if they draw into a counterspell, they don't have it for the Reign of Revelation. That might be an argument. Yeah, I guess I'll do it now. I think we discard a Wish Coin Crab, because I definitely like the Mutt better to destroy the Rousing Reed. But we definitely don't Defiant Strike right now just to draw 1 card, because we're not going to draw into 1 counterspell. Because there are 0 counterspells. Mind Rot, sure. Do I actually just discard Gorehorn over the Mutt? Because I feel like getting rid of flying is incredibly important. I think I do. Probably should have Defiant Striked first to, like, thin my deck out 1 more card before I had to discard. And then if it was anything that I wouldn't want to discard, I just discard Mutt. Alright, and they just have Bad Deal. This is definitely another game we're just losing because we don't have any counters. As you can see, we saw 6 cards, and we could have seen a 7th if we cast Defiant Strike. So if I had a counterspell in my first 7 cards, could have maybe stopped their bad deal at least. But in a deck with no counters, it's not going to happen. Just with everything else in my deck, that was definitely not a bad draw for a deck with counterspells in it. Opponent has the Epitaph Golem to not mill out, and there's the Bone Pit Brute. That pretty much means I'm dead no matter what. Because even if they don't have a counterspell up, and I draw into a Read the Tides and follow it up by drawing my whole library, it's going to be a game where we both have Epitaph Golem out, so we both don't mill out. And they're a deck that has counterspells in that situation. Or, I guess I haven't seen a count. Yeah, there's one counterspell. We've seen cancel. So they can, like, return cancel repeatedly with Epitaph Golem. They can just, like, return cancel and opt. Return cards in a way to where they draw their whole library, and then literally only return cancel to their deck. And then they just counter everything I do. And then definitely at least counter my Epitaph Golem. Or remove it with one of their removal spells. Well, this is a hilarious instance, because it's an instance where I have to just Rouse and Read one of their creatures. I'll Rouse and Read the Gloom Sower, I guess, because it's already got flying anyway. I guess I could just Rouse and Read one of the Sky Scanners. That would probably be better, to just Rouse and Read a Sky Scanner. But when I think about it this way, it's like, if I bounce Gloom Sower at any point later on, I get to kill both of the flying things. Kill both of the +1/+1s, and we just draw into garbage. Teferi's Protege would draw cards, but it doesn't draw them fast enough. We just play Tome Anima and take lethal to the face. So we're at, what, like 3 wins and 2 losses? Are we at 3 wins? I think the gigantic... Or not the gigantic, the couple people just conceding immediately in a row, yeah, put us up to 3 wins. So an exact even run, even if we lose the next game, so I'm super happy with it. This is really a teaching moment of an Omniscience Draft here to show that counterspells are actually very important in this format. I think I started off undervaluing them a little bit in my first draft, but in the second one I was definitely taking them pretty highly. And this deck here shows what happens when you don't have counterspells. Because when you look at our deck, we have pretty much everything else going for us. We've chained in to insane 30-card draw games and all of that nonsense, but we're doing that with no way to defend ourselves against our opponent responding with their own combo chain turn. So it is... not super working out in the 2 losses, at least. Definitely works out when our opponents concede. So our opponent goes first, so it is entirely possible we don't get to play Magic at all here, but this is an absolute banger of a keep if our opponent doesn't discard our entire hand turn 1. So we'll see. Okay, the prospects are not great so far. Opponent has drawn 6. Opponent has drawn 9. And they're scrying 1. You definitely play the wall before you play another draw spell. So they very much could have another draw spell. Maybe some counter magic in there. Yeah, 3 cards in hand and they're holding on to all 3. This is almost definitely counter magic. We'll see if they counter Thrill of Possibility. They don't counter Thrill of Possibility. Okay, what about a Warden of the Woods? What about a Rousing Read? Everyone's being very nice. They're just pretty much allowing it every time. I'll take it. What about a Sky Scanner? We've got enough Sanguine Indulgences. There they are. that we're okay to discard whatever creatures, because we'll just be replaying them. Village Rites, draw 2. Alright, Duress, what is in there? Because I'm getting real spooked. What are you holding on to? 3 instant speed cards? Well, one of them is instant, but you're just holding on to Opt? What? Why? I'm incredibly confused. I guess so they can tap a creature with Tolarian Kraken? So they know they can, like, tap down all of our creatures to get through for lethal? I mean, sure. Well, Duress here get their only instant, so they can't draw into a counterspell, and now we bad deal and just make them discard the rest. Because Opt could have drawn them a counter off the top. Alright, now I can Defiant Strike. Sanguine Indulgence draws me another card off of the Sky Scanner in my grave. I suppose I'll use that now to see what we draw into before I do anything else. What do we got? Read the Tides, beautiful. Double Mind Rot and Track Down. Okay, Track Down, what do you got? Alright, perfect. Draw Sky Scanner, play Sky Scanner to draw Sky Scanner, and then play Sky Scanner to draw Read the Tides. Draw 3, 16 cards left, another Rousing Read. Use it on the Hexproofer. Another Read the Tides. We'll discard 1 Mind Rot then. Chrome Replicator is going to be 2 4/4s. That's pretty good. 14 cards. Yeah, we'll draw 3. Another Sanguine Indulgence. At 11 cards in my deck. So, I don't have a way to sacrifice any more Sky Scanners, and my grave is just a single Wishcoin Crab now, so the Sanguine Indulgence doesn't do anything. I can Infernal Scarring. I can actually Infernal Scarring a Sky Scanner and then Rambunctious Mud it. Oh, this only kills somebody your opponent controls? That's pretty boring. That'd be a lot cooler if it destroyed anything, like old school cards would. Well, that's my bad. Oh, I could Mind Rot myself, because Mind Rot's an old school card, so I could have, I mean, I don't have any creatures that draw a card right now, so there's no point, but if I had Sky Scanners in hand, I could Mind Rot myself to pick them up with Sanguine Indulgence, but then I could have just played them to draw a card, so that's not really anything either. Alright, Epitaph Golem. And I suppose we'll use that to not mill out, put our best cards back in. Just put Read the Tides to bounce our opponent's stuff. Actually just scoop them up. Alright. I mean, I'll take it, but again, no idea what's in our opponent's deck, so I don't know if they were super likely to draw into a way out of there. I think I was going to Epitaph Golem, just throw all the Read the Tides back in, because being able to like bounce 2 creatures is something. Whereas every other card in there was just like, just straight up draw cards. Weird circumstance there. I don't know what we would want to Epitaph Golem back in. I don't love this hand. But my opponent goes first, so if I mulligan, I'm to a 2-card hand and I just discard everything to a bad deal. That being said, if our opponent bad deals us, what are we holding on to? Like, we're just holding on to Village Rites and hoping to draw another creature? I think we're already just kind of screwed if our opponent has bad deals, so I could mulligan this and try to draw into our own bad deals and stuff, so if we do get a turn, we're guaranteed to go crazy. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Alright, well, not that insane, but now we have some draw power. Opponent starts with Liliana's Steward, Sky Scanner, sure. Defiant Strike. Chaining together some cantrips, just drawing 1 card apiece. Garruk's Gorehorn with the fancy Garruk style. And they pass the turn, probably holding up a counterspell. We'll Mind Rot it away, whatever it is. Even if it's a counterspell, they have to just cast it to counter Mind Rot. It's in the grave either way. It is a counterspell. So now the gates are open for us to potentially combo off if we draw into Bad Deal or read the Tides. We do not, though. We just Infernal Scarring a Skyscanner and pass, ready to draw a card off of that. And I could trade it into the Gorehorn. So Liliana's Steward on their field is actually getting some value here. They make us discard Duress, so I can't make them discard another counterspell. They draw Teferi, Master of Time. Luckily, Teferi's +1 does not do anything when you don't have any other cards in hand. It just mills you one. So we've got some time to deal with Teferi, ironically enough. Alright, Opt. I'll absolutely do that. If I hit another Infernal Scarring, I can just attack Teferi for lethal. Thrill of Possibility does not draw me a card by itself. I need to have 2 cards in hand to cast that, so I'm actually just going to go for a blind draw because I'm really worried about Teferi going insane here. Rambunctious Mutt can kill our Skyscanner to draw us 1 card. Actually, no, it can't. I literally learned that last game. It can kill their Skyscanner so that we can hit Teferi for 3. That's pretty good. I forgot all of the knowledge I learned 1 game ago. Head empty. I've just forgotten everything already. They could phase out my Skyscanner if they want with the -3 ability, but that seems pointless. Yeah, that seems really pointless. If they just drew a card and discarded a card, Teferi would be at 2 instead of 1 here. So, I don't know about that. Opponent does draw into some shenanigans again. Revitalize into Read the Tides. Into Rise again, draw a card off the Skyscanner. Oh dear. Which means that now Teferi is getting value because they're definitely going to be able to hold on to 1 card. So they're actually sifting to their better cards with Teferi's abilities. There's a Gorehorn. There's a Revitalize. Crash through. Read the Tides. Just drawing infinity and a half. You got anything else? 4 cards in hand. I want it to just be 4 cancel. Well, I get to trade with Rambunctious Mutt. They do get to draw a card here, but I definitely want to stop the damage and kill the creature. Like, giving them 1 more draw is not that scary when they're already drawing a million, and they're going to draw another card on Teferi, with Teferi on my next turn as well. Alright, they have the Epitaph Golem to not mill out. Basically drawn their whole deck now. 10 cards left. Well, 11, but semantics. I am excited for my turn coming up. I want them to just pick up a counterspell so I can concede right now. Yep, they've got cancel. Just pick up cancel. Just pick up cancel. You counter whatever my top deck is. Okay, perfect. Alright. So that is going to end the Omniscience Draft. So that is the 3rd one. Positive record every time just through just drafting the strategy. I mean, you draft the draw spells and you draft what's there. Pretty rocky draft in terms of what was in the packs in the 2nd and 3rd draft, but we turned it into a positive record every time, so you can't be mad about that. So pretty good runs overall. Real unfortunate to see basically 0 counterspells in all of our packs. That was absolutely insane, but thank you all very much for sticking around and watching all of the Omniscience drafts. The format will be leaving tomorrow. It looked like it was longer because I am recording them in a batch all at once. That's how I keep up with the uploading one video every day. I record multiple at a time whenever I've got the free time. So sometimes I'll even just record like 4 drafts in one day on one of my days off. But yeah, as always, thank you all for watching these Omniscience drafts, but that is going to be the end of the format. We will be moving back into the Ravnica Allegiance drafts starting tomorrow, and Tinkerer's Cube drafts are coming out at the end of the week, so we'll be doing some of those until the launch of Kaldheim. And at that point, it's going to be all about the Vikings. All about that Kaldheim. I'm very excited. So, as always, thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.